Hello, my name is Ken Rost with Frost Incorporated. Thanks for joining us today. We're here at beautiful Luck, Wisconsin at the Luck Golf Course. Thanks to Kevin Clunas for hosting us here today. Today we're going to talk about GPS spray technology. We're going to try to answer some of the most frequently asked questions and also give a brief history about how it all started. In my previous career, I worked for a sprayer component company, and I had met some innovative farmers that had developed some individual nozzle control and some GPS spray controlled systems for their own farms. This was back in the late 90s and early 2000s. I got to learn a few things from those guys, and I was intrigued with that technology. In 2006, when Frost Incorporated was founded, it was my mission to bring that technology to the golf and turf industry. In 2012, we introduced the first GPS spray control system for golf and turf sprayers. Now, the first sprayers that we did this with were other OEM's sprayers, and we were retrofitting our GPS system onto those pieces of equipment. And guess what? We still do that today. It's a very popular system, and it works very well. And so there's a lot of reasons why someone would want to put it on whatever sprayer that they have. In the last 5 years, have developed a turnkey opportunity with a fully fitted GPS sprayer on a Kubota chassis. And that's what you see behind us today. Of course, it's easy to see that technology has threaded its way into every part of our lives. Back in 2012, when we first started doing retrofits of our GPS system, there was a little bit of a fear of letting a computer take over the job that a person has been so trained and skilled at performing. Spray applications are very important on a golf course, and keeping it as accurate and as efficient as possible is critical. But now, with everyone having cell phones that are doing so many chores for us that we used to carry a camera and a phone and a watch. All these things now are combined into basically a mini supercomputer in our hands. So people have adjusted and should have adjusted to being comfortable letting technology operate some of the functions in our lives. The same is true for spray equipment. Letting a computer take control and do individual nozzle control, that's a no-brainer. I don't think anyone watching this today needs to be explained what individual nozzle control is and the accuracy that's brought with that. But when technology is brought into our lives, what we want as a user is we want it to be simple. Let the technology do the hard stuff, but let the user interface be simple. Now, I've looked at a lot of other GPS spray control systems on the market, Many of them have been just shoehorned into turf from the ag industry. The Ninja system was designed specifically for turf in mind. And when you try to operate the Ninja system versus another system, you'll see right away that it's simple. We make it simple so that the operators aren't confused and they can get the jobs done. One of the most important feedbacks that we've gotten from our customers that have been using our system since 2012, yeah, it's simple, it's easy to use, but we also support with training videos on our website. So when you get a new operator on your course, you can have them go through these video trainings and they can learn exactly how to operate the machine. But here's one of the feedbacks that customers have been giving us is that, you know, we see now that there's a fair amount of turnover in our operators on spray equipment versus 10, 15 years ago. And when you're trying to recruit an operator, you want to put them on something that they're comfortable with. Fortunately, the generation coming into the industry, they've been working with cell phones, they've been working with cars that have GPS in the dashboard. They're really used to having that type of technology. So what's important to a lot of these customers that they recognize that maybe they didn't recognize initially when they bought the system is that when you're competing for talent to come and work at your golf course and you have a GPS spray technology to put them on, you're going to get a better set of talent as a recruitment tool versus another course maybe down the road that has been poo-pooing GPS and doesn't want to use it. So it's an important feedback that we've gotten from our customers that kind of falls in line with that, keeping it simple. We make it simple for the operators, let the technology do the hard stuff. So there's a few ways to do the individual nozzle control system, and there's some systems on the market that whatever number of nozzles that they have a separate valve in a valve bank, and hoses go out to every single nozzle position. There can be some problems with that as far as lag time and startup time, not getting spray on your target exactly when you want it. So what you'll see different about ours is that we have devices on every single position of the boom. And those devices are connected to the computer through CAN bus communication. So each of these devices has their own identity. It's a very reliable system, and it's more accurate by having all of the action done right at the position of the nozzles. The next thing that I want to highlight back here is the flow meter. Now the flow meter is important because it's telling the computer how much liquid is going out of the nozzles, and along with speed, the calculation is done to adjust the rate relative to our speed. Now this flow meter is unique in that it's what's called an electromagnetic flow meter. It has no moving parts. And if you look at a flow meter with a turbine or a paddle wheel in it, you'll see that there's moving parts, and they can actually collect residue from the chemicals and produce an error, and it's something that then becomes a maintenance item on a system like this. Well, by us switching to the electromagnetic flow meters, and it's standard on our Kubota platform, you can eliminate some of that. You can also eliminate some of the error that happens when you change from one product that might be a little more viscous than another product, or a fertilizer that might be heavier than a spray product. This type of technology will compensate for that. You may ask why you see two nozzles at each nozzle position on this boom. That's because we want to be able to operate at a wider range of speeds and a wider range of rates with one set of nozzles versus having just one nozzle at each position. Because if you have one nozzle at a position, you're going to be maxed out at a certain speed that you can go before the pressure gets so high and it's atomizing so much that you're creating drift, and you basically have to stop or not increase your speed any more than that. So an example is very common to do an application of like 1.5 gallons per thousand on a fairway. Well, with a single nozzle system, you're going to be maxed out at 4.5 to 5.5 miles an hour before your pressure is so great that you're not doing anybody any good with drift. Having a second nozzle on that nozzle position allows the computer to switch to a larger nozzle when that first nozzle's been maxed out, and it'll turn both of them on when it wants to go even faster. Kind of like a transmission in a car. It's like having 3 nozzles on the boom instead of 1, because you've got A, B, and A plus B as the third. If you've been doing all of your fairway applications at maxed out at 4.5 to 5 miles an hour, and now you have a system that allows you to go 10 miles an hour, that is an incredible change in productivity. That can be the difference between maybe even having a second machine and a second operator to get the same job done. Now you may ask, you're never going to go 10 miles an hour on my golf course. It's too rough. There's no way anyone would have their teeth left when they're done doing a spray application. Well, that's where this Kubota machine comes in, because this machine with the 4-wheel independent suspension is by far the smoothest machine that you can have on your golf course, and it's a pleasure to drive. And yes, you can go 10 miles an hour on your golf course with this machine. So over the last 12 years of having this GPS system being delivered to customers, obviously we keep hearing feedback from customers about things that they experience that maybe they'd like to see improved. And here's one that really is often not talked about, but is actually very important. And that is making sure that when you're starting off into a spray zone, that the spray pressure in the boom is fully up to pressure to deliver immediately and right away. Think about a situation where you've been doing an application and you've got individual nozzle control, and you're slowing down over a mowing line and your nozzles are starting to turn off individually. Your regulation valve is trying to trim down the pressure because it's only delivering spray through a couple of nozzles. The regulation valve is lowering the flow coming out of the boom, and you finish that spray and you turn off your master and you go to a new spray area and you want to start out at full speed and have all your nozzles on. Well, the regulation valve on its last pass had trimmed everything down so far that it needs to catch up, and your first 5-10 feet of spray application is just dribbling and not at full spray pressure. So we were able to design into the software of our equipment a regulation return system. And basically what it does is that after you've turned off your master switch and you've exited a spray zone, doesn't matter how many nozzles were on the last time that you were spraying, it returns that regulation valve to a nominal spot so that when you start out, you're going to ensure that you have full spray in your starting zone and you're not dribbling through those first 5 to 10 feet. It's on and it's there. It's a unique feature, and it's a result of us listening to our customers and making improvements. Well, let's just do a quick walk around of some features on this particular Kubota platform Ninja sprayer. Now, the Kubota machine is a diesel-powered hydrostatic machine with 4-wheel independent suspension. So there's no shifting. It's either high range or low range. And low range is what you spray in, and you can spray up to 10 miles an hour. High range you can transport up to 25 miles an hour. This fitting here feeds a 15-gallon rinse tank with a pump that feeds this valve bank. We've got a hose here for emergency clean water, and then we also have rinse nozzles in the tank. When these are up, the spinning rinse nozzles will rinse down the product tank with clean water. That way you can spray out your rinsate out on the course without making an extra trip back to the wash pad. We've got the regulation valve. This valve is to supply the hose reel on the other side. We've got the filter that's in an accessible position, and then adjustment for agitation. Down here, you'll see we have a camera. That camera is actually looking at the nozzles behind the machine where the operator can't see. We also have some high-intensity LED, blue LED lights for spraying in dark conditions. We already talked about the technology for delivering spray, but we also have KYB electric over hydraulic boom actuators, which are very reliable. We have a stainless steel centrifugal pump powered with hydraulics off from the engine. And we have a hose reel with a spray gun for doing rough area and ornamental type spray applications. And up front we have the spray control monitor and also the camera monitor for the operator to see the nozzles behind the machine. You can also see the right side nozzles through the rear view mirror. There's quite a few other unique features in our software to help adjust for making more accurate and more productive sprays, but those are just some highlights that I wanted you to see today. One of the most frequently asked questions, especially early on when we first started back in 2012, is how accurate is the GPS? Well, fortunately, we are the beneficiaries of other people's development and technologies. Frost is not involved in sending satellites up to space and creating signals down to receivers here on Earth. We're piggybacking on technologies from companies like Novatel that, their biggest customer is the US government. So they produce a lot of technology that is developed specifically for the military, and we're just the beneficiaries of it. When we started out, we were using what we're calling a Smart 6 type of receiver. And if you've seen a Smart 6 receiver, you'd maybe think of it and describe it as a white mushroom. It kind of has a mushroom type of shape. And that type of receiver is great for a lot of technologies that are moving and, for surveying, things of those natures. But when we first started out, the accuracy or the repeatability of those receivers was only about 6 to 12 inches. I mean, it was great for starting out, people just getting used to using GPS, and it was easy to organize your boundaries so that you made adjustments for that amount of random error that would happen. Well, in the last few years, Novatel has come out with what they're calling the Smart 7 receiver. And this receiver's got a little bit of a different look to it. It's a little bit more stealthy, and it helps us kind of identify the generation of the technology that we're using for the GPS receivers. Now, these receivers are receiving signals from a group of satellites, and then they're using an extra set of privately owned satellites to communicate directly to ground reference points across the United States, across the world, and the radio signals going back to the privately owned satellites send a secondary or an error correction signal to these receivers to make us have an accuracy and a repeatability of less than an inch, actually a centimeter, so less than half an inch. And years ago, the only other system that was available to allow that type of accuracy was what's called RTK, and I think most of you have heard that term. RTK is also a centimeter of repeatability. However, you with RTK are reliant on, first of all, in the beginning, radio towers. Now you're reliant on GSM or LTE or cell phone tower signals to get those error correction signals to your receiver. And there's extra expenses involved in that. Well, again, the Smart 7 receiver with the error correction service that we call TerraStar does all of that without any extra third-party GSM or LTE signals or extra subscriptions. There is a subscription for the TerraStar service, but it gets you to within that centimeter of repeatability. And that accuracy is definitely suitable for what we're doing in golf and turf. So another question that we get very frequently is about mapping. And mapping is when you can take any boundaries that you have on your course. They might be all of your tees, all of your fairways, all of your greens, rough areas, practice areas, etc. And you will have probably, many different spray areas in each of those categories. Well, mapping is where you use the machine, or we also have a little cart that we rent, and you can go around and you can make the boundaries for those spray zones and save those boundaries. That way, when you go back and you want to spray them, using that centimeter of repeatability, you can spray exactly over those areas. But mapping takes those boundaries in those categories and collects them and puts them all into one map. So you don't have to open every single individual boundary. You can just go to a map that says tees, or a map that says greens, or a map that says greens with collars or approach areas, whatever it is. And all of those zones will show up on your screen as spray areas, and everything that's not in those areas, the machine just won't turn on. Now, the mapping part of it, the boundaries you create yourself on your own course, but the mapping part of it, Frost has traditionally offered that as a service. So you would send those boundaries to us. We would put them into a GIS program. The GIS program takes some knowledge and some experience to operate, and we would create those maps for you and email you back those maps, and you would load them into your machine and you would have them set to go. We are proud to have been a strategic partner with Greenkeeper, and Greenkeeper has brought to the market finally a GIS program that's simple and easy to use, and it's only for turf. And they call it Greenkeeper CIS, or as in Course Information System. The benefit to the Greenkeeper CIS program is that it's something that you can do. So you can go out and create your boundaries, load them into Greenkeeper CIS. You can make any edits that you want to. You can put as many different rates for different products that you want to. And basically, it's like hitting print. It creates a set of shape files that you load into the sprayer, and the sprayer just executes those. So Greenkeeper CIS has put into your hands the ability to edit and control your maps instead of sending them to Frost and waiting for Frost to return the maps to you. Now, the other benefits of Greenkeeper are obvious. It's been a tremendous tool for turf management as far as turf performance, growing degree days, weather information, spray application information. Just adding this onto it is just a tremendous tool. So those are some of the highlights for this machine, and I hope you see the value in some of the things that we talked about today. Another thing I guess I want to make sure that you're aware of is that, in these current times, it's tough to get equipment from a lot of different OEMs. Frost, we're able to deliver these machines within 30 to 60 days. So if you're looking for a high quality, high performance machine with GPS spray technology, give us a call. But in the meantime, let's answer some questions that you may have, and hopefully we can get you some answers.